This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 19th of August, 2019, and I am 2J.
I am Tuam.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines. The Star, RAILA's secret card jolts Jubilee, NASA. Daily Nation, mystery firm builds city on sewer land. And The Standard, Ruto, RAILA must keep peace if he loses in 2022. I'm going to take The Star and The Standard together.
Yeah. Very good.
And I say, let's look at both of them.
I think this is also hot off the presses of some action that happened over the weekend.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. But then again, I don't think there's anything secret with Raila running. He was born to run.
We describe, then we start analyzing Uhuru jabs.
Okay. Now, of late, from Sunday, the nation began with Ruto. Ruto will be Raila's opponent. Now, on Monday, we are having Ruto Raila. The Star, Ruto Raila.
Yeah.
My thinking, this is a scheme by Raila Odinga. And he's giving people a decoy. He's saying I'm going to run for 2022. And people are believing him.
But
the real scheme is there will be a system that there will be nothing to run for.
Ah, okay. All right.
And
Constitutions, yes.
Yes, and the executive presidency as we know it will cease to exist by 2022. And he'll be prime minister.
And so that is why he said over the weekend, I'm not running.
Too early to discuss 2022.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I will say about this headline that I did find it a bit harsh and very strong-worded.
Yes.
Raila must keep peace if he loses in 2022. That is an assumption that he's going to incite violence.
Yes.
Which I don't know if that's harsh on. I don't know if those were Ruto's exact words.
No, that's what he said.
He said those exact words.
That's what he said. You see, he said, I am very busy completing the president's work. But when the time gets there, then I will face you. Okay, and that's a little bit of a jab because he's telling Raila he's not busy himself.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
No comment. We have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Are these headlines topical or are they speculative? Are they repetitive or are they groundbreaking? And finally, are they thoughtful or just plain lazy?
Yeah. I'm getting very tired of this story, and the time for politics hasn't even begun yet.
So says you. The people of Kenya will love politics.
But I feel like right now this is 2 children who are having an argument with each other saying, but you, no, but you, but your face, but your face. There's no...
He stole my burger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finally, Daily Nation. Mystery firm builds a city on sewer land.
Let me ask you people.
Yes.
They have said 1,600 acres
in
Ruai.
Yes.
Let me ask you, how many people have 1,600 acres in Ruai?
No, not very many that we know of. But I think before we even get into those details, I think, Ms. K, you need to give us a breakdown of what this story is telling us. Because this is part 3, as we predicted, but it took an interesting turn of this sewer story.
It's true, and they say it themselves that for the last week the nation has been running a toxic flow series. So there's a research that happened, a project that was undertaken, and samples were taken from various points of Nairobi River all the way down as it changes in name and form and goes all the way out into the Indian Ocean. And what they found was that we are having a toxic flow. It's full of heavy metals, full of disease, and you're getting sick. And that's what we thought this story was about.
That's where we thought it was going.
That's where we all thought it was going. Therefore, when I looked at this paper, I was so ready to throw it away because I was done. Because I remember, I think it was DM on Friday, she said it was rivers of doom, toxic flow, corridors of disease. Next it was going to be another one like that. And I was so ready to throw it away until I read the story and a gem emerged.
Absolutely.
Towards the end of the story, they start making hints to the fact that there's land. The reason why we don't have
a proper sewage system.
We don't have a proper sewage system. Is because the land was taken. And in fact, on about 1,600 acres of it, some company with unknown directors is building a whole city. And I was curious.
A city north of Embakasi. Who is building? How many families build cities
north of Embakasi? I don't know. And I think part of the problem with this story is that they're saying a lot without saying anything at all. And I think we want to declare it a cowardly headline.
Very cowardly.
Because to the point here, they do say at the bottom, and I'll read, ongoing construction on land next to the Nairobi Water and Sewage Company's treatment plant in Ruai, on the outskirts of Nairobi. A firm is building a city on land that has been earmarked for the plant government's expansion. So I think that they're trying to tell us something without actually saying it at all.
My hunch is that they're digging at someone. There's someone they want to mention. But why are they so scared? They're owned by the Aga Khan.
I don't know, but here's the thing. I want to encourage Kenyans to read this story.
Yes, I think
for this
so.
reason, it doesn't lift your veil of ignorance, but it does pique your interest. And I will quote Sherlock Holmes. If you've eliminated the possible, the impossible, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. And I assure you, Kenyans, if you read between these lines, you will identify who is being pointed at in this cowardly headline.
Because 1 + 1 is indeed 2.
Absolutely.
In this case, it's 5. But I will say that I think it's our winning headline.
I agree.
For selling one thing and then delivering on a whole other thing. So, what do you guys think?
I think winning headline.
Winning headline for me.
We have a winning headline from the Daily Nation. And on to our next segment, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break them down for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is this cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain lazy? I feel like today is a lazy Monday.
It is a very lazy Monday. On Mondays, we know we get Iga's comic strips.
Oh, yes.
But this one I like. Right? But before I tell you why, let me describe it.
Okay, describe.
Caricature of
There are no caricatures.
the new brothers.
Oh, okay, all those brothers. All
the
right.
new brothers. Okay. And now he's wearing his orange jumpsuit, and that is Raila Odinga. And next to him, the driver of the tractor, and the tractor is BBI, is Uhuru Kenyatta in his red pajamas, right? And they're building a bridge. And next to where they're building a bridge is nice, fancy houses, you know. But underneath the bridge, are slums. And then there's a barbed wire so that the poor people cannot get to the
fancy houses.
It's fantastic. But you see, this thing they're
the piece that they're using to connect the bridge.
It looks like it will not fit.
I don't think it's gonna fit.
So it's gonna fall on who?
The poor people.
Yes.
However, just as an indictment on Iga, I think that we are reading too much into it. I do not think that I do not think those are his thoughts. I think that is us interpreting something that would have been good had it been what he was trying to say.
No, I think these are his thoughts.
It's probably what he's trying to say. It was intentional. That piece is
what he's telling us. What he's telling us is this: the Building Bridges initiative has got nothing to do with Kenyans and with poor people. And if you think it has, you're not very clever.
It's a meeting of dynasties.
It is all indeed about elite interests, and that is why you have mansions next to the bridge.
Slums,
So this bridge of ODM is meant to fix for people to go to Jubilee. That's it. That's it.
I say put it in the parking bay because I didn't think I was going to say that, but put it in the parking bay. Let's see. I think there's nothing to see in the Standard.
Yes, Gado is missing in action today. All we have today is an opinion cartoon. There's no editorial cartoon.
Yes.
So I think we're just going to toss it immediately.
Before we toss it, it is an opinion piece by a man called Wayne Owino, and he's talking about the shame of how we treat our sports people. And guys, he is right. Government has mistreated and is continuing to mistreat our sports people.
Very true.
And when someone like SportPesa comes into the business and say we will collect betting money and sponsor entire leagues, and then the same government comes and cracks down on them, people lose livelihoods. And someone says, oh, we have a sports fund, we are going to pay people using this sports fund. You barely can pay for a national team to stay in a hotel in Morocco. So how are you going to fund an entire league?
Well, today 2M came to preach.
Let me help you make that decision,
Finally.
My favorite minister of all time, Olelenku, Joseph.
I thought it was Matiang'i.
No, Joseph.
You're always mentioning his name.
Joseph Olelenku, right? And, former cabinet secretary, now Kajiado governor, and he's there. It's a caricature of him, and he's pointing to burning cash.
A burning chair.
Burning chair, and has burning money. And the caption there is, I can pull another Westgate. If you remember when Westgate was under a siege of terrorists,
Yes.
Olelenku said, the fire you are seeing out there has been put on by terrorists who are trying to misguide us.
When they burnt the mattresses, right?
They put the mattresses on fire.
I don't know whether it's in poor taste or whether it's funny. It's in that cusp. It just walks that narrow line.
So of course the context here is that he has been accused of spending 22 million on entertainment, whereas he says that's not true. He only spent 100,000. I don't know if you ask me, 100,000 and 22 million, those are worlds apart.
I say toss it.
I agree.
And I say also toss it. I don't know. Should we toss the Daily Nation?
There are no funny cartoons today.
There's no winning cartoon.
You're just tossing everything.
It's a such kind of Monday. What is our final thought?
And now our final thought. A book that I love, inspired by it, and it's called Not Yet Uhuru. by Oginga Odinga.
Yes.
A man who was named Obadiah Adojina Oginga Odinga.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it very well. But it sounds so much Nigerian.
It does. But I think you had some interesting information about the name he goes by, Jaramogi.
Yes, Jaramogi. So, Ramogi is the king of the Luos, correct?
Who is believed to have come from Sudan and Uganda in the 15th century.
Precisely. But Ja in Luo, I'm not Luo, but I was told it means this. The person that belongs somewhere or to a clan.
Yeah.
So Jaramogi,
exactly.
Oginga Odinga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is, as we all know, the autobiography written by Jaramogi Ajuma Oginga Odinga.
Absolutely.
Right? Born in October 1911. They actually say in the book that he does not know when exactly he was born.
And by inference, he found out when he was born.
Exactly.
Yes.
So he was christened, as you were attempting to say, he was christened Obadiah or Adonijah.
Adonijah.
People,
yes.
don't go to church.
But is it's Obadiah?
It's okay, I say Obadiah, I'm sorry. But he renounced his Christian names and became known purely as
Jaramogi.
Yes, Oginga Odinga.
Yes.
So this book covers the period from the time of his birth up until his resignation from the independence government as vice president in 1966. So I would say that his life is defined in part by his ideological leanings and how he pursued them in his desire to be a good leader.
Yes.
So he was a student at Maseno High School, followed by Alliance High School, and then he eventually went on to Makerere University. And I think that we can call him a pure product of African education. I think unlike what do we call them? The successor class. Exactly. These are the people like Jomo who went to LSE, others who went to
Biuko Inange, went to
they traveled abroad and they got their education abroad.
Yes.
So the two themes that I think we find in this autobiography are his thoughts on missionary schooling in developing intellectual elites. So how the intellectual elites co-opted these people and taught them in their ways. But then at the same time, how this became divorced from an African upbringing. And therefore you have the imperialists developing a very conscious leadership who they intended to take over once they left.
Ironically, also, we should mention that he talks about interpreters at the beginning when the whites started coming into the area as the people who were on the cusp of becoming the next leaders. In fact, they're the people who became chiefs. And he gives a funny story about a son of a place called Sakwa. So Jasakwa. So this guy goes and he learns Kiswahili and he's sent by the whites in advance to his elders to tell them we are coming, tell them to negotiate with us. So he goes there, he tells the elders, don't talk to them, they have big weapons, just accept. So the chief tells him, okay, while they're still negotiating and discussing amongst the elders what they will do, the white settlers come in. So he sends this son of Sakwa with gifts and says, go offer them these gifts from us in anticipation of our conclusion. Just welcome them. This guy goes to the white guys and says, these guys will not negotiate with you. In fact, he doesn't even want to see you. These are gifts I've brought you. And you know what the white guys do? They made this guy the chief.
So they were using the fact that they didn't speak the same language. He used it to his own advantage.
Yes, he did.
So I think that what was interesting is the things that Jaramogi believed in. He believed in equality. And one of the key things he talks about in this autobiography is building independence through business. So you have this thing they call the
Luo Thrift?
Yes, the Luo Thrift
Corporation.
Exactly. So he believed in organizing trade and economics and business. So you do that first and then we will look for independence after.
And I do agree that if you go back into the people that we have looked at in the past, kind of reminiscent of Malcolm X. Because he also believed in us, the black people, cordoning themselves off and then growing themselves economically to a point where they're able to negotiate on an equal footing with their oppressors. And that is what Jaramogi was about. He was about getting economic emancipation. And once we're economically emancipated, now let's go look for our political action.
Yeah, that's very true. And then another interesting thing he talks about in the book is they call it his icy relationship with T.J. Mboya.
Oh, yes.
So let's not forget that this is happening in the Cold War context. This is post-World War II. So you have these ideological differences. And so you have the Kikuyu capitalists on one side. And then you have this Oginga who has these socialist leanings. So he talks in the book about how Mboya was the darling of the West. Right? But then he was considered the darling of the East. And so he talks about how he traveled to China, to Russia, to all these Eastern countries, trying to bring this socialist philosophy to Kenya. But you have Kenyatta as, the primary Kikuyu capitalist. They really end up butting heads.
But we also have to mention that in the book he says it actually is a true fact that once, when he joined the Legislative Council, he went and gave a speaking, I think, to the Conservative members in Westminster, and there he pledged when Kenyatta was detained that he would pursue the release of Kenyatta upon his return to Kenya. And when he did, he started receiving a lot of fallback and no one wanting to support him in this thing, and he was actually one of the first champions for asking for the release of Kenyatta. And not just the release, they wanted daily updates on the progress of the detainees to ensure that they were well and alive.
So isn't it so interesting then how all these years later, when we talk about the relationship between Oginga Odinga and Jomo Kenyatta, all we focus on is the headbutting, is on the fighting, on the negative impact that it had thereafter, when in fact he was one of the champions for his release.
Absolutely.
We could almost call that an early handshake.
Oh yes, and by the way, that's where I'm going. But you've seen the video where he's being questioned by this white guy. I don't know whether it's BBC, and he says he was asked, "Are you going to be president? Do you want to be president of Kenya?" And he says, "I will not until our master and teacher is released from prison." You know, I found that very
profound.
Very. But then again, there's something that you said about Tom Mboya. And Tom Mboya is thought to be the guy who did the airlift. But there was a version of an airlift. And this version was by Jaramogi, right? He sponsored very many children and people from Luo Nyanza to go to the east and come back. And I was reading some scholarly thing that the reason why academia is so high in Nyanza province is because of those two. People went to different parts of the world, came back and empowered an entire region, you know, to do PhDs.
Now that you mentioned Tom Mboya, there's a funny passage I'd like to read from the book.
Right.
I think it's one of Prof's favorites from this book, where when Oginga Odinga first got elected to the Legislative Council, he goes back to Kisumu to give a report to his constituency members. And he wants to tell them what his experience was in Nairobi, how the Legislative Council was, who he's with. And as he's describing, he gives very, very, very interesting descriptions of his Legislative Council co-members. He says, and I will read verbatim, "I painted a word picture of each of my colleagues in the council. Muliro, I said, was a sailing boat whose next direction was difficult for the settlers to assess. Ngala was a young hippo who hid from his father but went secretly to measure his footprint in that of his father. And on the day that he was satisfied that his footprint was equal in size to his parents, he challenged his father to a duel. Mboya, I said, was a rabid black dog that barked furiously and bit all in his path, while Oguda was a black dog that barked seldom but bit dangerously. Mate was a philosopher. Moi was a giraffe with a long neck that saw from afar. I myself was called Mzee, the elder one."
Oh, wow.
Beautiful.
So he describes everyone like that, then gives himself such a honorary title.
He is Jaramogi. Please do not forget.
We spoke about the handshake. And guys, in my view, the first handshake that happened in this country happened in 1952. And did you guys know that Jaramogi was introduced to Jomo by Chenganeko?
Yes, I did.
Now, in that meeting,
you find that out in this book.
Yes. Now, in that meeting, after Jomo meeting Jaramogi, some years later, Jaramogi writes a thank you letter to Jomo. And allow me to read what he told him.
Of course.
He said, "You can't imagine the happiness I derive from your one-day visit to Maseno on Tuesday. I really enjoyed your company heartily and hope we will have more moments like this in the coming days of our self-government. In this, I'm your disciple to the hilt. You are so much at home as if Maseno had been your home in Kikuyuni.
I can't even believe it.
Kikuyuni. I will never forget that memorable day. I hope to attend many meetings with you and give you as much assistance as will be possible." Then he signs off and says, "I remain always your disciple in nationalism.
Wow.
Jaramogi Oginga Odinga."
That's a powerful letter.
That was powerful. But it tells you about the closeness of Jomo and Jaramogi, right? And these guys were there for, I think they were friends and very close confidants for about 15 years. Now, if that is the handshake we are talking about, I'm for it. But it's for.
But is it?
But if it's for eating pizza, sausages, and nice boiled eggs, then I'm not for it.
I think that when we look at this relationship, it begs a question between leaders who choose to be violent in the way they want to express their ideology and those who want to be pacifists.
Absolutely.
And I think that what we find about Oginga in this autobiography is that he did end up being a bit of a pacifist. He left the government because he felt that Kenyatta was taking it in the wrong direction, and he wanted to find other routes in how to do it. And he says that of his best friends and his closest confidants were Pan-Africanists, anti-colonialists, and anti-imperialists. So you have Nehru of India, Nasser of Egypt, Nyerere of Tanzania, Obote of Uganda, and Kaunda of Zambia. And I think that these are all leaders who had such great vision, but I think might have ended up being a bit passive, passive in the way they tried to.
I find that ironic because when you read the book, and I think the book channels takes you through his journey as he goes through it by himself and as he comes to his own realization. I find it interesting that at the end he turned out to have befriends with the pacifists. Yet, and I quote him again, he gives a very profound statement. I am deeply perturbed that in Kenya today, those who sacrificed the most in the struggle have lost out to people who played safe in our most difficult days. Because then what a pacifist would be, a person who would be a person who played safe. And that's what he was. I feel like he took on a more militant approach. In fact, he says in the book that the point at which he chose to follow Kenyatta and become a COW member was when Kenyatta went to Kisumu and gave a speech in which Kenyatta said very tough words. He said that the tree of freedom is planted. So the tree of freedom is planted, and for it to grow, it needs the water of human blood. Guys, if that doesn't sound like a militant statement, I don't know what is. But it's interesting that in the end, they were more pacifist than they were militant. And that's our heritage.
Absolutely.
This is Winning Headlines. Today we're doing Not Yet Uhuru by Oginga Odinga. And this week we are doing a whole series on our founding fathers, the founding fathers of Kenya as a nation, in the run-up to the 41st anniversary of the passing of Jomo Kenyatta on August 22nd. I think that will be Thursday. And on that day we will do a book that we've been quoting a lot. So just hold on for it. Don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on our TV, on your TV stations. Take a moment to look for us. We are on GoTV, Star Times, and Pang free to air. And subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'll end with a quote. He said, and I quote, I am convinced that to start the battle against white domination, we are to assert our economic independence. I think that we have to assert our economic independence.
Absolutely.
Couldn't be true.
Absolutely. It's the only way to an equal society, if at all you're going to be equal.
Have a great day. See you tomorrow.